Hello, hello. Welcome, friends. Welcome to Adobe Live. I am here with my good friend, Ashley Batz. Ashley, hello. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing swell. Better now that we're live. Cool. So, before we get into your introduction, as always, got some housekeeping items to go through. So, first of all, let's have a look at the schedule, what just happened, and what is to come. So we were just live with the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with the one and only Voodoo Val. We're live now with Ashley and myself. These times are all Pacific time, by the way. We have the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge afterwards with Andrew Hockrattle. Tune in because his video bumpers are super creative and super on theme with what he does every time he's with us. Then we'll have the Editorial Design, XD Daily Creative Challenge Draw Along, and a Creative Encore. So real quick about those Creative Encores, they're kind of a new thing we're starting to do, but they're similar to a watch party. Netflix, all these other apps are starting to do them. We're pretty much watching a replay, but we're watching them together with a live chat. So super fun thing to tune in and watch it with a live chat. So Ashley, hello, hi, welcome.
Hello. Thank
Good to
you.
meet you. Yeah. What is going on today? Let us know what we're doing. We're going to be doing photo editing stream, by the way, but tell us a little bit about yourself and what we have in store for today.
Totally. So I'm a photographer and I'm currently based in San Francisco. I'm at my lovely photo studio here. It's nice and cold, so I will be very alert for these 2 hours. And I've been working for the past decade as a photographer and have found my path through mostly shooting people and a lot of cool people too. A lot of local famous folks like
Oh yeah, I see
the
Steph
one and
Curry
only
there
Steph
already.
Curry.
Nice.
Yes, one of my favorites. Fun story, we only had 15 minutes to shoot him, so I had to be extra ready for that. Um, and yeah, a lot of my work is really rooted in people and showing them that they can be celebrated in this world no matter who they are. So that's basically what I attempt in all of my work, portraiture or not, is just kind of the joy of being on this earth. So hopefully you get some of that when you look at it.
Well said. I love the work. A lot of awesome portraits. Definitely have your own unique style that we can see just by looking at this portfolio. So good stuff. Very excited to see what we have in store today. Before we
Thank
jump
you.
into some Photoshop editing, I do want to give some love to the chat. By the way, if anybody is tuning in from YouTube, make sure you come on over to Behance. That is where the conversation is happening. That's where I'll be looking at the chat and we'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. Just looking at the chat, I want to say hey to Jennifer, Susan, Robert, Sam Peterson, Andreas, General Kenobi. Good to see you. I've seen you in the chat a lot, my friend. We got Sean as well, another regular. Ferry, Cody Bear, Henry. Wow, we got lots of people. Sydney. Yep, the list goes on. Go ahead and drop a line in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. As Ashley said, she's in the Bay Area, so am I. We're in San Francisco. It's nice and gloomy. I wish we got a little
Mm-hmm.
more rain because California needs rain. But
Absolutely.
yep, so let us know where you're coming in from. And Ashley, let's get into it.
All right. Well, as you all know, we are uh, in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if everyone's aware, but
Are we?
I know I keep forgetting. I'm just like in this vacuum by myself here. And I think it was around, March or April. Obviously, work was shut down, and I was just at home with my husband and trying to figure out ways to be creative because that is such a part of me and who I am and how I self-express. So we were living downtown in San Francisco and on one of the most busy streets I've ever seen in my life. And at that point, there was no one there. And so we started looking outside a lot and saying, well, what would it look like to take a portrait on that street? And would that kind of uh, resonate with us about what's going on in the world? What does it feel like to live in San Francisco right now? All kinds of stuff. So I just had him walk outside and we started shooting. But in order to get to that place, I actually started looking at images of things that might help me kind of come up with what I'd like to shoot. Does that kind of make sense already?
Yes. Yep. Still have me. I'm
Great.
following along.
Good. Great.
Yeah, I love how you are
And this is
capitalizing. It is, I mean, it's a weird time, right? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
yeah.
But as crummy as it is, there are opportunities, and namely what you said. I mean, San Francisco is usually a crazy, dense, populated city with so many pedestrians on the streets. But right now, there is nobody. I mean, it's super bizarre. So I love that you took that opportunity and was able to make something out of it. I'm excited to see what that is.
Thank you. But something that I do before all of my shoots, and something that I really encourage everyone, is to actually look at a lot of images, maybe not even images that were taken recently, really kind of go back so that you can look at the visual dialogue that photographers have had for the past few decades. So I made my little mood board ahead of time, and I'll share that with you, just to kind of get a sense of what I was looking at and the feelings that I was trying to evoke when I did take this photo that I will show you. So hopefully I'm building lots of good hype for my image, but are there any images that really stand out to you?
Let's see. I like the one all the way on the right, the 40 candid street photography. I think that composition is super sweet. Yeah. I mean, I guess they're at the bottom of a subway and looked up, and that guy so happened to look at the camera when it was shot. I think that's a very cool image.
Yeah, totally. No, no, go ahead.
No, yeah, and the theme of just isolation in a city. I mean, that one that says the top 10 most amazing black and white. I mean, that one stands out. I mean, that's kind of what I picture with somebody in a city that's just nobody there right now.
Yeah. So, and Pinterest is a wonderful tool to use when you're creating a mood board. And you can totally go down a rabbit hole too, but I started looking at these shapes, and I think what I took away from all of this was that there's these graphic shapes that feel rigid and soft, and they feel isolated but also meaningful. I think there's these little pushes and pulls that you can do even when you're taking an image, before you even edit it, that can be really helpful in getting it to the place where you want to get it. So
Agreed.
Yeah. So for my purpose, I was actually going to be standing in our apartment, looking out of the window down onto the street. So things that are more of a bird's eye view are things that I was drawn to, just because I knew that logistically that's where I was going to be. And oops, let me get back to that. Dun, 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 dun. Empty streets. So yeah, I really gravitated towards these images, and really considered shooting something that would end up being black and white as well. But as you will see, I did not choose that. So yeah.
Cool.
How are we feeling? Should we get into it?
Yeah, I'm just gonna look at the chat real quick and see what people are saying. A lot of people chiming in where they're from. We got Carrie from Oregon. We got Ferry from Indonesia. Sydney from Kentucky. Janit from India.
Wow.
Let's see. Yep, lots of people tuning in from all over the place. And chat, let us know what you think about this mood board. So Ashley put it together for the purpose of this live stream, but let us know if any photos stand out. Which one do you like best? And what sort of feeling do you get by looking at this mood board? So, yep, cool. Let's jump into it.
Yeah, that's. I'm totally curious about all of that stuff. So
yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a delay until we start getting responses, but I'll definitely relay to them as soon as they start getting in. I think we're like 10 seconds ahead. We're operating in real time.
All right, everyone in the past, join us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open my Photoshop where I already have the image that I am going to work on.
So there's the image.
So this is Geary Street, and usually it's a very bustling street. There's buses all over the place, people walking, bumper to bumper cars. And on this particular day, and for a lot of the days, it was quiet. And so you'll actually see tomorrow that I'm going to show you maybe the whole set. But the idea here was that we shot all over, actually, through the window, other places where I could see him. But where we really landed was this actually quite interesting piece of concrete with another piece of metal on top of it. Just like this like really interesting weird patch. And he stood right in the middle of it and just stared at me, and he was wearing his mask, things that were really timely. So yeah, I think that's what I landed on as the image that I'd like to work on as my base, but I do have some other things that I wanted to bring in, like birds flying in, other things like that. And just to note, I would have been on a tripod knowing that I was going to comp anything, but I wasn't. So we're gonna be having a little bit of a fun with that too.
Fun. Yeah, and immediately just looking at the mood board that you showed previously and you talking about the shapes with things standing out. I mean, that's the first thing that I noticed just looking at this image. I mean, your focal point kind of goes to this just bizarre placed square concrete that's so out of place, but there's a man standing in the middle of it. So I think the composition of the focal point just screams at you, which is a great shot. So
Yeah. And so if we were to go back to that mood board, I think the one thing I would say is how can I push my image further to evoke that same feeling? And so I think most of the work that I'll be doing here is not only some color and some curves, but also I really want to remove this and the people. And that's going to be a fun challenge.
as I didn't even notice the people until you mentioned that. I guess there is somebody up there hiding in the shadows.
Yeah. I think we got two folks, and I want to make sure that it feels like my husband is all by himself. So, yeah.
Yeah, we got Reverb Mike saying, hopefully a bus isn't coming.
Definitely not. Promise.
Yeah, I think with the pandemic, their service has definitely cut down, unfortunately. But yeah, some people are commenting about the mood board. They're saying it looks awesome, black and white, very moody. Yep, cool. So let's keep on chucking along.
All right. So something that I like to do right at the beginning of every image is actually create a little bit of a markup. And so I'm going to just take my brush and pick a color that is maybe a markup type of color. And let's see here.
So for the people in the chat who may not know, what is a markup and what's its purpose?
Yeah, so I come from a school of film photography where maybe when you get all of your negatives, you look through, whatever you have to maybe choose what you want to do. And then on your contact sheet, once you've made that, you can kind of like mark up with a specific pencil that maybe you want to crop here, maybe you want to take, dodge here, burn there. All the same kinds of things that you would maybe do here in Photoshop. So I think for me, when I have the time, I think it's really important to just create a quick layer and maybe circle some of the things that you want to remove so that you don't forget. And it'll help you just kind of like keep on track, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, agreed. It's kind of like a visual cheat sheet. You kind of plan your plan of attack and start marking it so you remember to address those things that you want to touch up.
Yeah, and also for me, I work with a lot of retouchers. And so in order for me to effectively speak to them about the things that I'm needing, I obviously do markups as well, where I'm explaining, hey, I'd love for you to move this or take this out, or just so that they know where my vision was, because they weren't there on the shoot as well. So there's different ways to use the markup, whether it's for yourself or for someone else. And I think it's really, really helpful. So here we go. Usually I don't have a ton of time. So, and feel free to call anything out and be like, why did you leave that in? Or I don't know. So This street is fairly dirty, but I actually do kind of want to clean it up. So I'm just going to circle some things that I'd like to remove. Maybe this guy too, all of these like little things. Anything essentially to draw my eye back to my subject is going to be really important for me. And that's just why I'm making these markups, so that I can keep on task as to what I'm really trying to accomplish. We've got our people.
There's a second one.
And then it's like, where's Waldo?
Yeah, I thought it was a light meter he's hiding, but.
Take this truck out. Take this car out. I mean, we got pretty lucky in terms of not having that many cars, so my job is fairly easy. And then I can always refer to this, which is really, really great. Trying to think of what else. Maybe some of this stuff over here, not entirely necessary.
So Sean is asking, why are you not using an empty layer for the markup?
Oh, I think you can do it either way. Eventually I will let go of this layer, so it's up to you, really.
Yeah. No right or wrong way to do things, just whatever works for you.
Yeah. I like knowing that it's the image. I know that sounds kind of weird, but there are times and places to use an empty layer, but for me, I was like, I'd rather see that I have it and don't. So that's my markup for now. Who knows? I might add some things. I'm not sure. All right, let's get into what I typically do next. So what I love to do next is 3 different curves. So I always will make them ahead of time. You can also create an action to start that if that's the way you're going. So I'm going to go and just really rename them so that I know what everything is. And this will be my general curves. And my second one will be my soft light. And my third is my color. And in my general curves, I typically have a certain way that I like to do images. I like to make things a little bit more filmic. So this will not apply, but usually I'm always pulling up the shadows and pulling down the highlights, and that you can already tell feels a bit more filmic.
Yeah, that's the classic.
But for this, I want it to
make it look like film curves. It's just kind of bring up the shadows.
Yeah, but for me, like, I really want shadows, and I think if we looked back at the mood board, the thing that I was most gravitating towards were those like really dark shadows and the really angular graphic architectural moments. So I might leave that a little bit, but I think I'm going to pull down the shadows here a bunch and really get the grit out of the street and the saturation of the color, and then pull up right here on the highlights to make sure that I can still see everybody and everything. Nice. So this is turning into more of like a typical S curve, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's looking pretty good so far. Just toggle off and on. Yeah. And something that I've been learning. That's good. That's what I want to hear. Keep telling me that it's moody. If not, then we got to change something. So, but yeah, and also I come from a school of, shooting film. And so to have this bandwidth in shooting digital is really nice so that I can push and pull. So I'm still learning a decade later how to shoot something in camera so that it sets me up for success later, which is so difficult.
Yeah, and that's a big one. We actually chatted about that before the stream. I think there's kind of this thinking where like, oh, we'll fix whatever in post. But I think the better approach to thinking about it is try and get it as best in camera so that it makes your job easier. And sometimes that's not always possible. We obviously see that we couldn't get an empty street, which you can obviously do in post. But in terms of the setting, the lighting, the composition, it's better to try and get those things in camera instead of trying to do that in post. Because the more you have to work in post with what things you should have gotten right in camera, the more it just starts to get a little wonky.
Yeah, I agree. And it really does come down to looking at images, seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, asking questions about how folks did something too. And you can, appropriate that for yourself in your practice. So I've learned that I like to give myself a more neutral image if I can, and then I can add shadow, take away shadow, and work from there. So this is my general curves layer. It's already looking pretty moody. This is a second layer that I always do. I call it a soft light. And so what I do is I actually change the blending mode to soft light. And I always start as the middle ground image, right? Literally one horizontal line here. And what's really great about this is that you can just incrementally change that soft light using that blending mode. So it's nothing crazy, but it's just that for me, it's this really incremental thing that really makes or breaks an image for me. And so as you can see before, I'm just kind of punching it up a little bit more. And I'm always doing this to taste. So there's no right or wrong. It's really just up to you and what you're seeing. And so I'm looking at the shadows mostly because I want to make sure I'm heroing out those really graphic shadows from the light post here, whatever this is, probably an awning, and then the shadow right here, just to really draw your eye.
Awesome.
And then lastly, I do a color layer. So I change it to a color blending mode so that I can only affect the color. And I'm going to go into each channel and just play around. So I'm noticing a lot of reds already. So sometimes you can even use this tool to pick the color, and then you can, with your tool, with your pen, I have a Wacom tablet, you can drag and move it and see what kind of color is really going to evoke the right kind of feeling for you. So my personal preference is warmer images, so I'm going to kind of take it there. And then I'm going to go into the blue channel, and depending on where you pull, it gets warmer or cooler. So I'm going to keep it warm.
Nice. It's looking awesome. What do we think, chat?
Thanks.
Is this falling in line with the moodiness of the mood board that we had a peek at before we started editing? Or what do you think the general view of the photo is looking like? Let us know in the chat.
Tell me now.
Right now. Give us answers. We need 20 hovering art directors.
Oh my God, that's my nightmare.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot here.
Okay, cool. How do we feel? How are you feeling about this color?
I think it's looking good. I love the fact that you took it from a color that's already in the photo, kind of using that shade. So it's all kind of a cohesive color palette. So yeah, it's looking good.
I mean, look at that. Hello.
Yeah. Hello, moodiness.
Great. So the next really fun part is you put on a Netflix show and then you make a blank layer and you remove things. And so I'm just going to take a look here.
There's our markup.
And just start working my way. I think I'm going to start top left. That seems to be where all the problems are. So I'm going to zoom in a whole bunch, and it's time to remove some stuff. And on these empty layers, I really like to do all that I can. You can't use every tool to remove things, but let's see here.
What's your go-to tool for removing things or using the...
I am using this spot healing brush, and I'm just making sure why it's not entirely working. There we go. I was not sampling all layers. So there you go. I just got this new computer and this new tablet, so I don't have everything locked in, which is always fun to get it back. I'm also a huge fan of the patch tool, but on an empty layer, you cannot use it. So we will see that one coming in later.
Cool.
And the whole thing about this is it's to be really as quick as you can and precise. And if you go too big, it will probably not do what you want it to do. Sometimes it does, but you can see it kind of created an artifact. So I might get back in there later and remove some stuff, but huge fan of this tool, especially for some quick stuff.
Yeah, looks like the little smaller artifacts it's golden for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you never want to be super heavy-handed with anything that you're doing, but it's just great to start. And this is something that I do on people too. There's always a layer where I am removing things that may not be permanent, is what I like to say. So if there's like a little pimple or a piece of lint, I like to take those off of my portrait subjects.
Yeah, that's a great point. That question comes up a lot on our streams, and it's, you know, how much editing is too much editing, especially with people. And I think that's a great rule to go off of, is anything that's not permanent, right? You obviously don't want to get rid of natural beauty marks or stuff that that person's just had their entire life. But things that will eventually go away, then yeah, I think those could be removed.
Totally. And I think, you know, there is this fine line of drawing your eye, and specifically in landscape photos, I think you can get a little bit more creative. For me, this image is really about the feeling of being stuck in our apartment for shelter in place. And so I think I'm able to take a little bit more liberty in the sense that, like, I will remove these cars because it's not supposed to be a direct representation of what I saw. But I do firmly believe that when you're photographing a person, unless it's consensual, that you should really leave, you know, what they are, who they are.
Yeah, what makes them special and unique.
Yeah.
Cool. We have Samuel tuned into the chat. Welcome, Samuel. And he's got a comment. He says, one of the things I've noticed is that every artist uses their own techniques to achieve the result. That shows that there isn't a wrong way to create your own art if the results are true.
I totally feel that way. There is no wrong answer. At the end of the day, it's art.
Yeah, art is subjective. It's arbitrary. There's no right or wrong way to do it. There may be more efficient ways to use tools. I mean, I know the more I use apps and I see other people work, I'm like, you saved me 30 minutes using a tool that I didn't know existed. But in terms of the final image and how you want it to feel and look and the mood of it, there's no right or wrong way. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever you think the photo should be and what feeling it should invoke.
I agree. I mean, if you wanted a little bit of an art history lesson, I mean, there was this artist named Marcel Duchamp, and at an exhibition, he put a toilet there, and that was his art. He didn't make the toilet, he just bought it. So there you go.
It's art.
Your ideas. I don't know why this is bugging me, so I'm just going to remove it.
We have another question that says, how do you deal with texture loss on surfaces? Let me know if that's a little too vague and if you need the person to clarify.
I mean, I would love a little bit of clarification, but I think I have an idea, so feel free to clarify and then we can chat a little further.
Yeah, feel free to tell us a little more what you mean by texture loss and on what types of surfaces, Samuel.
Yeah. I mean, this image has no shortage of texture, so we're looking pretty good here.
Oh yeah.
Just doing my removing still. I really want to keep the grit, but I also want to draw the eye back to my subject. So anything that I think might not serve a purpose, I'm taking out. And just as a little bit of a reference, we started with a little bit of a markup, which is not always necessary, but just to show, that's something I definitely do, whether it's for myself or my retoucher as a guide. I think it's really important. And then we did 3 curves layers, and I think they all serve a different purpose. One is a general curves layer, one is your little soft light moment, and then one is a color curve so that you can really dial in the color. Oh, yay, trash.
Yeah, is that a diaper?
You know, I don't know if we'll ever know.
Who knows? It'll be the mystery receipt or a diaper.
I think we're gonna have to get in with the patch tool on that one.
Right tool for the right job.
Noticing. That's right. You know, there's a couple other things that I'd love to get in there and remove. And again, it's all to taste. So, and that's why it's really important if it's you retouching or someone else that you're able to communicate that sort of thing. I'm even going to take out these rivets. They don't need to be here.
Bye, rivets.
Bye. And in the shadow, keep the shadow going.
So we have a little more clarification from
Samuel.
Yeah. It says, as you edit out parts that you don't want, how do you correct the textures that quote unquote should be underneath?
Well, I think if you're doing it the way that I'm doing, which is a bit more detailed, then using the spot healing tool, it will bring that texture back, so you won't lose it. But if, for example, you do, let's go back to this example. If you try and do a big sweeping moment, that actually did pretty good, but you will lose some texture. If you see, you'll see that it couldn't exactly guess everywhere. So I would suggest, doing things not so heavy-handed so that you can have that texture. And you can always clone stamp, do whatever you need to do, hopefully in the least amount of moves so that you don't, compromise the image too much, especially if you want to print it or all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of ways to approach it, but I would just say, like, go really slow and don't make big sweeping movements. So I just noticed over here, and this wasn't in my markup, but I really wanted to hero out the shadow here. And so I'm actually just going to remove anything that might take away from that moment of this shadow.
Nice, got to isolate the focal points.
Absolutely. I think that's really the name of the game for the success of an image, besides the mood or what you evoke from a person, if a person's in the image, but really deciding, what was your point of view. So we're just going to take a little bit of a look before. You see all that stuff, and after.
Wow, big difference. It's funny.
Right?
You don't really, looking at it as a whole, it's like, yeah, it's not really noticing it. But when you really start adjusting it and taking them out, and you do the before and after, which that's one of my favorite things to do, especially in Lightroom, is just looking at before and after. You really see the difference. And it's, it's not one simple edit that's going to make an image. It's all these little edits. It's all these little touches that all come together to bring that final piece come to life. So yeah, I think all those little things are definitely making a difference.
Yeah. So I called that my little cleanup layer. We do have some more cleanup to do, but I think I want to do it with some other awesome tools. So I'm just going to take a quick look at my markup, and I feel like I did most of what I was trying to remove, at least on the cleanup layer. So I'm actually going to delete this now. Bye-bye. Don't need it.
Layer served your purpose.
Yep. So I'm feeling really good about this. And there are some things that I'd like to add before I remove even more. And you can do this any which way. Some people will add these things after the fact, but for me, I am very linear in a lot of ways in thinking. And so I want to see maybe where I'm going, so that I can wrap things up. So on some other frames, I took some images where I saw birds that flew through, and you can see them in these two frames.
Nice. Was that by happy chance, or were you just kind of waiting for some pigeons to fly by and snapped away?
I did not even realize they were flying by, honestly. I was focusing on making sure my husband didn't die from a bus and
Nice.
maybe shooting really quick. So when we went back and looked at the images, I was like, oh, wow, that's
Nice. Happy
cool.
little
I,
accidents.
I know, I need them in there. So what I'm gonna do actually is just drag this in and pull it into the image. I think it's gonna be oops, really awesome.
Let's do it. We have a question from Fernando. How do you know the right time to stop removing things?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think these continual checks where you can, toggle in and out like we just did on that cleanup layer, just to make sure, is really great. I think it will be more apparent when you're maybe cleaning up on a person's face or skin or clothing. But just doing those continual checks where you toggle on and off on that layer, I think it'll be really helpful.
Yeah, it's a big one. I think that before and after double check is just really lets you know where you are and where you came from. And I think it'll make you, or it'll help you make a little more educated decisions on what it is you want to do.
Yeah. So this is that second image, and I'm gonna start lining it up and painting in the pigeons. So this will be really fun. So I'm gonna turn the opacity down, and as you can see, that's my original image, and this is the second one. So I'm just gonna turn this into a layer that I can rotate on this low opacity so I can match it up properly.
It's awesome you have the line straight across. You have like a visual guide to base that off of.
Yeah,
Makes it pretty
always
simple
pick
for this
whatever that
case.
is.
Yeah.
Yep, as much as you can. Yep, that's looking pretty good. Let's see where else I can push it. There you go. All right, that was easy. So I'm going to turn the opacity back up all the way. Oops. And so currently I'm viewing this layer, but I don't want to see this layer actually. I just want to see the things that I'm going to paint back in. So I'm going to just call this birds 1 because I think I have a second one. And I'm going to make a mask. So right down here is the way to make a mask on a layer. And currently the mask is filled with white, which means that everything is going to be seen. But in order to paint things back in, I'm going to invert the layer, and I'm going to click Command I. So now we're back to seeing my original image. And it becomes a little bit of a guessing game, and you can do it the opposite as well, but I like to make a challenge for myself. And so I'm going to paint with white where those birds were, and I know that one was right here.
Nice. Good guess. Nailed it.
Right.
Hunting for birds.
And then wasn't there another one over here?
You're 2 for 2.
I know. And then I had some shadows. There we go. I see that. You see that bird shadow right here?
Yeah, we're covering it. Can you go to screen right? There we go.
Hey. So I want to bring that in there. And that's going to happen.
Add more to that authenticity.
There she is.
There it is.
So as you can see, I painted in the bird here, but it's going to, not align with what's currently happening. So I'm just going to get in there and paint with black to remove some of that work, just so I can make it easier on myself later.
What's the little rhyme to remember that? White reveals, black conceals. I'm asking.
Yeah,
Learn that
that's
from
good.
Jesus Ramirez, a Photoshop wizard.
That's so good. Wow, that's amazing. So that's looking pretty good. Let's just make sure that everything I'm painting in is what I want to see. Beautiful.
Looking good. In the meantime, we have another question from the chat from Fairy. Does low ISO always mean better? Question mark.
I think today's theme is that there is no wrong answer, but if you do want an image that gives you the most bandwidth to work with, I would say low ISO is better. And in this current scenario, it was definitely very sunny, and I decided to shoot at a higher f-stop so that I could see all of that grit and the texture in the concrete or whatever I was seeing. So any chance that you can shoot with the lower ISO, I would highly suggest it. But again, there's always interesting aesthetic choices when shooting at a higher ISO that gives you more of those digital artifacts that feel like grain. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, well said. Agreed. Love the questions, chat. Keep them coming. Remember, we have Ashley for about another hour and 15 minutes. So now's the time to ask her any questions. Ask any questions relating to photo editing, photo composition, anything with photography. We are here to have a two-way conversation with you all while watching some awesome photo editing wizardry from Ashley Batz.
Yeah. I mean, I hear myself talk all the time. So let's not do that. All right, so this is going to be birds too.
Birds too.
And because there's another set of birds, and I want more birds. And so I'm doing the same thing where I'm lowering the opacity. I'm hitting Command T in order to make it into something that I can rotate and scale. And I have these awesome lines to work with, which is amazing.
Worked out super well for us, those lines.
I know. And I'm just scaling until I see where it might line up the best. And that's looking pretty good to me. Yep. So I'm going to turn the opacity back on. I'm going to create a mask layer. Then I'm going to invert it by hitting Command I. And then I'm just going to reference here and be like, okay, here's the bird I want to bring in, and here's the shadow. So then it'll just feel like another Hitchcock movie.
The birds.
So, so with my white brush on a black layer mask, I'm going to nail it yet again.
Wow, you're 3 for 3 in guessing. We're like shooting fish in a barrel blindly, but you keep guessing it right.
Well, I've done this before.
Not your first rodeo.
Yeah, here's our next bird. Again, there's so many ways to do this, and I highly suggest that you find your own way. I definitely like to make it a game for myself. So
just have some fun with it. Why not?
Right. So here are the birds.
Reverb's got a nice little pun, I guess, for us. He says, the more the feather. Nice.
That's so true. Yeah, I mean, anytime I can introduce some interesting moments like that, I'm all game for it. So, great. So we've got our birds. They're looking good. They're there. They're part of the image now, and I feel really good about this.
It's looking good. I agree.
Thanks. So some of the heavy hitter stuff I want to remove, like the cars and the people. We'll do best with some content aware and some patch. So what I'm going to do, I'm really happy with this. I'm actually going to take these layers from birds to background. I'm going to hit Command J to copy it, and then Command E to make it one image that I can work on. And this is a way that I'm thinking about like chapter 2 of editing my image. So I still have all of this information, but I'm going to do something more. And so I'm going to do it on this layer. And I'm going to call this big item removal. And so if I screw up on this image, I can always go back and start again. But we're not going to screw up.
No,
so, you know,
we're pros here.
We're just going to go for this.
So to recap, you kind of did like a game checkpoint. You know, you started a new image with all the edits that you've made so far, and then it's kind of a checkpoint where if anything happens, we can go back to the original stuff. But we've added, like you said, chapter 2 of this edit.
So this is just where we started. And again, this is great to just keep checking your work. We did a cleanup layer. I already felt like that was really good about the small cleanups. And then we added some birds. And then on top of that, we've got a really lovely treatment going that I'm feeling really, really good about. So yeah, we just created we copied all of these layers minus the curves and made a new layer so that I can get in there with some different tools. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
So here's one. So we can try a couple of things. I've got the patch tool here, which is a wonderful tool. So I'm just gonna grab it and I'm gonna move it to a place where maybe I want it to look instead and just see how that looks. And I pulled it off so you can see that there's an issue here. So maybe not exactly the way I want to go. So maybe what I'm gonna try is some content aware.
Content aware is just black magic. It is so crazy how that effect works.
I love it. So I'm going to do it with using the workspace. So I'm going to go to content aware fill, and it's really going to help me see what it will do. And it's looking really good. So I'm going to say, yes, please.
Oh,
I know.
Just like that. Like I said, just some straight up wizardry.
It is. So I'm going to get back in there, and I think you can see that there might be some texture loss. So what you can always do is take your clone stamp and add those in. But I feel pretty good about it, actually. Let's just make sure I have everything here.
Let us know in the chat, do you folks use content aware? What have you used it for? How did it work out? Let us know. I do most of my edits personally in Lightroom, but when there are things that I need to remove, I'll bring them into Photoshop just for content aware.
That's fun. Yeah. I think it's great.
It's awesome.
All right, we've got 2 people and a dog. Oh my god.
2 people and a dog. Oh, there's a second person there. Wow, I keep discovering more people hiding.
I know. So this one's going to be interesting because there's shadows, there's people. I'm going to maybe take the path of least resistance, hopefully, and do a little content aware here. We can work on that shadow later. So I'm taking a look. It's looking really, really good. And people are gone. Shadows have remained. I'm going to come back for that. I'm going to say people, camera left. And we'll come back and clean this up. I'll essentially, we could try it right now actually, but I'm essentially hoping that we can continue the line of the shadow and make it look like there was no one ever there. So it's not quite doing it. So we'll come back to it.
Nice.
And that's the beauty of content aware. Sometimes it loves what you're doing, and sometimes it doesn't.
Oh yeah, got other tools for the job to get things done. We have Mallory tuning in. Hello, Mallory. Welcome. Hey everyone. Hello. Sorry I'm late. Major multitasking today. This is a great topic to cover. Agreed. We have
And
some
then I'm
people
just
chiming
naming
in.
things.
Whoops, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Chime in.
Yeah, it seems like we have people commenting on what they used Content Aware for. We have Fairy saying, I use Content Aware fill to remove some photo bomb or to fill the top sky if there's not high enough for my canvas. Yeah, photo bombs. Content Aware is like it was made for photo bombs.
I know. I'm curious, like, what the photo bomb was. Was it a bird?
Yeah, let us know, Fairy. What was the photo bomb?
So this one is great. Just remove this guy, no problem. I'm seeing a little bit of some artifacts, and I think I'll come back and fix that, but looking really, really good. And so let's just take a look. We've got, I feel like I'm continuing to draw the eye, which makes me feel really good. So I'm just gonna clean up a little bit and make a little group. And I'm gonna say removal, just so I can give myself some more room here.
Love how organized you are with your layer naming. Very, very useful.
So then I can just pick the whole group. Wow, so fun.
Fairy says the person that they Content Aware filled was someone who just came around my photo randomly like a ghost. So Fairly apparently has ghosts in his photos, and he uses them or uses Content Aware to get rid of them. Which, if you have ghosts in your photo, man, I need another tool for that.
I don't know. I think, yeah. Well, I think we should. I want to see the ghosts, but okay. So now it's time to get into some of my patch tool. This might be a little bit of a big undertaking here, but
let's find out.
I'm going to take this selection. It's all about trying, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you won't know until you try it.
Oh, wait, hold on. We've got an issue. And I wonder why. People camera left. Oh, right. So I removed the people. And that's what left here. But I'm still working on this layer. So that's going to be an issue. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that away. And I'm learning. And in the meantime, I'm going to start here and just start to continue that line.
Nice. Keep with the line. Smart. Very smart.
Thank you so much. Always learning.
Always learning.
And you know what? Now we're going to try some Content Aware and just see how that goes.
And Mallory, on the subject of Content Aware, been speaking a little bit to this. She was asking what the green is when you pull it up. And I believe the green is what you're telling Content Aware to reference.
Correct.
So as you can see, it's green, and it's going to replace what you're trying to remove with things that are highlighted in green. So say we have a street, right? And that's green. We obviously want to keep it green, but if you have a person that's green, we don't want it to be replaced with another person because that's exactly what we want to remove. Right.
Absolutely. And you can see that you have some options up here to indicate the excluded area or the sampling area. And for our purpose, we want to exclude the people so that it looks at everything else but. And you can change this color, but mine is green, and it's going to be helpful for me in this particular image. So, and I get to see what it might turn into, which is absolutely perfect.
Right.
And I'm feeling so much better about that.
Nice.
That's amazing. That's so great. Great. Looking good.
Looking awesome.
I know. So now let's try some even larger things to remove.
We're going big, folks. From people to cars.
Ay. I mean, what did we do before Content Aware is the real question here.
Yeah, great question.
I want to hear from the chat. What did you do before Content Aware?
Yeah, those of you who have been using Photoshop pre-Content Aware, what was your workflow to get rid of unwanted objects? I'm not
So
gonna lie.
as you
One of the
can
big
see
reasons
here,
I started using Photoshop was because of content aware. So you're gonna have to let
really?
me know. Yeah, it's just I've
Oh,
always just tried to stick to Lightroom because I do a lot of landscape photography. I think if I did more portraits or if I did more things that require to remove things, then I probably would have jumped to Photoshop in a while. But it is something I've been picking up quite a bit, and content aware is just one of the big reasons why.
that's awesome. So as you can see, we did a content aware and it didn't quite see what we needed to see, but I think I'm going to keep it. And then I'm going to, after, take a piece of the sidewalk that I do like and then keep it going. So we're just going to keep moving along here and make sure that I can get everything out that I need to get out. And let's do more content aware here. We don't have this anymore.
We have folks chiming in. They said seems to be the big one was the clone stamp tool and the patch tool, which makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does make sense.
They're classic tools.
Yeah, such classic tools. And then let's just try and get a couple more cars here. This one's tough because it's under a tree. And the last time I did this image, I was like, oh man, that's going to be tough. But pretty good. I feel like content aware just got better over time.
It's learning. The machine is learning.
It's like, you know what Ashley needs? Better content aware. And I'm like, you are right.
It seems like
But, you know,
everybody
if
was
you
using the clone stamp tool in the end. And it's still very valuable. I mean, I think you can't rely on content aware for everything, but it's kind of the easy way out, right? See if that works.
Yeah.
If not, then start getting dirty with the other tools. It's more like got to get into the surgery and finessing it.
Yeah. So this is the beginnings of the removal, and I feel like there's two ways to think about it. There's should I go back and try and finesse it a bit more, or can I reconstruct this street and add to it? So I'm not quite sure. I feel like I should reconstruct the street because I feel like the content aware tool did a really, really, really good job. But I'd love to hear what other folks would do too.
Yeah, let us know in the chat, folks. What do you think Ashley should do? Reconstruct the street, or what was the other option?
Or maybe go back and finesse a bit.
Finesse with other tools?
Yeah, maybe just rework some of my content aware that I did before, make it smaller, see what I can do. But I feel like this is a pretty good canvas.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be a couple seconds until we get people replying. So let us know in the chat what you guys think.
Yep.
Reconstruct or get dirty with it with some other tools. Get a little more finesse.
So I'm going to do chapter 3 for
Chapter
now.
3.
And I'm going to go Command J and Command E. And I'm going to call this Reconstruct. So again, that was just a way to basically in one layer compile everything that we've done and make it into a new layer that I can now work on its own. And
Sweet.
so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the good part of the street. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it into a new layer. And I'm going to move it over and start seeing maybe where I can benefit from some of the reconstruction moment.
Okay.
So that's one. That's looking pretty lined up to me. And to work it out even more, so I'm just going to say sidewalk. I'm going to make a layer mask. I'm going to not going to invert it. I'm going to work off of the white layer mask with a black brush, and I'm going to paint out what I don't want.
Nice.
So this is going to bring back all of the stuff that I was hoping to have in the first place, including these awesome shadows from a tree. just to add the moodiness back into the image. You just want to make sure that you get everything so that it doesn't look weird or distracting.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm taking from another piece, I always take more than you need so that you can paint it back in.
We had some people in the chat commenting. Reverb Mike was saying use the regular old paintbrush, which is what we're doing now. Or maybe you could try content aware on smaller patches.
Yep. I think you could. Actually, I know you could.
Suggestions.
So I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm going to grab this again. Maybe an even longer piece now, which is nice. So I have more to work with. I'm going to copy it, paste it. And now I'm going to bring it over here and find my own path with where I might want it to be. Let's see here. And all of this is in shadow, so essentially I only need it to come to a certain angle. And I just want to make sure that it's aligned with the way that the sidewalk goes.
Right.
Make it feel a bit more real. That's looking pretty good to me. And now it's about painting it out.
Painting away. Blending it all together.
Bob Ross would be appalled.
He'd be proud of us
right now. He goes so fast. I don't know if anyone's tried to take one of his classes on like YouTube by looking at his previous work, but he is a fast painter. All right, that's some good reconstruction here.
Yeah, it's looking good. Good technique.
Thanks. Still working it out, but I think it's getting there for sure. Yeah, that's looking awesome so far. I mean, before that's getting there, definitely.
Oh yeah. We have Patrice asking, how do you do that purple line? Not sure what you're talking about. Did you bring up a purple line at some point?
You know, when I brought this sidewalk in, it was kind of telling me that it was at the same angle, and that was kind of cool. But it was nothing that I did specifically. It was something that Photoshop was telling me, like, hey, I think you might be at the same angle, which was really helpful.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I'm just going to take a quick look at what we've done so far.
It's my favorite part, the before and after, where we've gotten to.
Yeah, that's great.
I love the addition to the birds. I think that's done a lot to adding to the feel of the picture.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, totally. I think it's starting to happen. I think the things that we need to just address is, you know, the texture, and just making sure this is a bit more seamless. So I'm gonna keep working on that, but I think it's looking really good so far.
Yeah, agreed. It's happening, people. Things are happening. It's all coming together.
It is happening. Let's do current and below. Let's do all layers.
Are we on the clone stamp tool here?
Yep.
The classic one. Always has our backs.
Again, like, keep it really simple. I just want to make sure I'm in there doing the right stuff. And then I'm going to get in with the patch, make sure I'm doing the right layer blends here. Yep. Patch is the best too. I mean, talk about some good stuff. Just taking this away. And I mean, the cool thing about this image too is that there's so much grit in the street that it's going to be a little bit easier for me to work around some of that, because there's just so much information on the ground that I can move around, I can play with, I can draw the eye in different ways.
Yeah. The
But
imperfections
just, you know,
definitely.
follow the lines.
Yeah, the imperfections definitely play towards our advantage here.
Yeah, I think so. Again, like maybe you want to clean up that, you know, some of these lines here. That was a little bit too much. Maybe make this a bit softer. Yeah, there we go. That's looking great. And then this is still part of the car, which is awesome. So let's start working that out, taking it away.
We have Alexander asking, which Wacom model are you using?
This is the Intuos M, I believe, from 2019. I used to have a really big, fun one, and then decided that I wanted to be a little bit more mobile. And for me and my purposes, it's actually been really great. So I've really enjoyed it, actually.
Awesome.
But I know there's some awesome ones out there. So let me just take a look and see what this white line was before. Oh, it wasn't anything. I'm gonna take it out. I don't need it. That's cool. I mean, I liked the suggestion content aware, but maybe not necessary.
Manifested out of nowhere.
And then you can see that there's some, you know, replication here that maybe it's a bit harsh for me. So I'm just gonna start moving it into places that are a bit more varied so that the street can start to get that texture again. And just keep moving my way over, checking it out, seeing what I'm missing. This is great. And then maybe I just want to add a little bit more shadow here. And then checking out here. I think I'll want to just bring some of these lines back in and just removing, finessing, all kinds of tools, clone stamp, patch tool, spot healing, all my faves.
Using it all.
So I think I'm going to remove this guy here. I don't know if I necessarily need this one. And I'm just going to take a look. It's totally going to remove it. I feel really good about it. It's looking good. So let's just back up, take a look here. I feel like it's looking really good. I think some of the things that I might address here, maybe this shadow here, I think at first glance, I'm still looking right at the middle of the image and I'm actually leading my way here, but I just want to give the audience the chance to really do the work that I'm hoping. So I'm just going to keep going by removing some things.
Yeah, let's keep doing it. It's all working.
And I'm just going to grab a bigger piece just to give myself all that bandwidth. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to move it on over. I'm going to make sure it's at the highest that it can be. And then I'm going to turn down my opacity to make sure it's in a place that I want it. Yeah, that's looking good. And just to make sure where I'm actually targeting is more around here, just to bring that in. So maybe I need a little bit more room here. That's great. So
We have a
again, I made a layer mask. Go ahead.
oops, sorry. We have a question from the chat. It says, do you prefer a setting for the diffusion with the patch tool?
So far I leave it the way it is, but there's so many ways that you can work with the patch tool. So highly encourage you to get in there and work through it. But the way I have it is pretty normal at the moment, and it does a great job as is. But I know that there are times where you will want to finesse it a bit more. So that's a great question.
Sweet.
Yeah. So again, just bringing back parts of the street. And when I see something I don't like, I'm just going to turn it to the black brush and take it back away. Yep, that's looking great so far.
To pull up the chat on my phone because it's no longer showing up on my desktop. So,
Oh,
I'm
good.
looking at. Yay, fun stuff. Just live streaming stuff. No big deal.
Always fun.
Got John Eric in the chat. Welcome, my friends. Good to see you. Haven't seen you this year. I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah, hello.
Cool. This is looking great, Ashley. I am really digging what's going on here.
Thank you. And just gonna keep removing. I mean, I think that's the name of the game for this. It's not always, so, which is, you know, it's always just your plan of attack and how you want, what you want out of the image. And for me, it was, how can I draw the eye back to the subject?
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's going in the right place, and I'm feeling really good about all the stuff here. Yeah, this is looking awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a great mantra to stick to, and honestly, just to keep in mind when you're doing in your edits is what's the focal point? What's distracting people away from that focal point, and then just addressing it. And what you're doing too with the little edits with the patch tool, obviously content aware is great when it works, but sometimes we got to get into the finer details and do them by small batches just to make it look a little more authentic than just having like a giant blurry spot. So this is what Ashley's doing now. We're sticking to the lines, as she said earlier. The lines never lie. So those are our guides here.
And, you know, at the end of the day, I think this is more for me than anyone else, because this will probably only live on something like a portfolio or Instagram, but it does help. You know, I know it's not perfect sometimes, but just knowing that I went the extra mile to ensure that this was an image that was mostly rooted in reality, I feel pretty happy about.
Definitely. We have some
preference.
We have some praise in the chat. Sydney saying, Ashley, you are awesome at Photoshop.
Thank you. I don't always feel that way, so I appreciate this.
And Yvette says, wow, I am so impressed. Agreed. That makes two of us.
Well, it's so funny. I think I come from an era where it was really new when I was in my younger years, and I wish I had stuff like this to tune into and learn from. So it's been really cool to share what I know and to watch other folks do what they do. So yeah, just so stoked.
100%. Yeah, I think these streams are a great resource for people to learn all sorts of tips and tricks and workflows with the apps. Everybody that's tuning in right now, I mean, there's a lot of learning going on. Even I'm learning a lot. So this is good stuff. And yeah, I think back in the day, I mean, I think you just had to look at books and read how to do something, but just so many resources now. A lot of people can be self-taught with everything that's available online, through free videos, through live streams such as these, through daily creative challenges we offer. You literally just have a plethora of resources to just learn all these apps. So thanks for tuning in. You're already doing an awesome thing by watching these streams.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I say a lot to folks that I mentor is that you really need to keep looking, keep learning, and take that away and decide what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and what works for you. So, you might be like, I wonder why she did that. I wonder if there's a better way to do it, which there absolutely is. So, highly encourage all of that.
We're back to the mysterious diaper, maybe receipt piece of paper thing.
Get it out of there.
There we go. Is that the patch tool? It solved all our problems.
Exactly. And I'm just lining that line back up. Almost forgot about that. I'm glad I caught it. And you know what? I kind of wanted these originally, and now they're bugging me. And something that I noticed, I know. Something that I noticed is that, if you want to draw the eye places, maybe things that are darker on the edges might not help you with that. So I'm just removing something that I found to be a bit more distracting. And to that point, I think this is a little bit distracting too, which is great. And something that I really encourage is, and I think we talked about this about like toggling on and off, but I also think that if you were to zoom out a bit and just look at the image as a whole, or even step away from your screen, I think that'll be helpful so that you can really see what kind of change you're affecting. Because I think if you're really into it, you can Photoshop all you want, but really at the end of the day, you just want to see it as a whole. So I'm constantly getting up, stepping back, saying like, oh, wow, that's really great. I love where this is going, things like that. And I think that's really, really helpful at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a big one. Step away from your screen, folks. Once you've been working at something for hours, you got to take a mental lap. Promise you, once you do that and you come back, either something's going to click or you're going to notice something that you hadn't noticed because you were so dialed in. That's good. It's also good. Just step up and stretch.
Oh yeah, we all need that sort of tip right now.
Speaking of creative habits, we have Bryce asking, what do you find the best way to deal with creative burnout?
Wow, that's a good question. I think this year has been a huge part of finding what that means. For me, in the beginning of all of this, I was really just trying to make sure that we had food on the table, and being creative was probably the last thing that I thought about. And then I started really trying to figure out how to hustle, how to get some work, how to really change the name of the game, doing things virtually. So it's been really interesting, and that created a different kind of burnout. But I think if you can really just like take a second for yourself and say why you're doing what you're doing, what you love about what you do, I think that'll really help ground you. It's the same reason why when I exercise and I don't want to exercise, I say, well, I will feel good after this. This is going to help me, be the kind of person that I want to be. So I think just like taking a second and thinking about it will be really helpful. But I hear you. The burnout is real.
It is, especially last year and even today. We have some challenges that people haven't faced in many, many decades, centuries. So take care of yourself, take care of your body. Actually, you brought up a great point about exercising. It's really easy to just make excuses, but once you even do that, that's something I also personally do, and I feel immediately better afterwards. Stepping away from the screens, just taking care of yourself first, it'll honestly hit that reset button, so you're more inclined to get back to that creative, awesome workflows that we all tend to get into.
Yeah, I really do believe in all of that. And just being grateful. I think what I do for a living is definitely a privilege, and I feel that more than ever these days. So But at the same time, for you as someone that's creative and as a creator, it's really important for you to document what it is to be you in this world right now. So that was this endeavor, actually. That was like, what does it feel like for me to be a human in 2020 with a camera? So I do believe those are really important tools.
100%.
But I feel like this is looking pretty good.
I agree.
I'm feeling pretty jazzed about it.
What do we think, chat? Are we also feeling jazzed about this? What do we think of all the edits in the background? It all looks to work so seamlessly well and blend into that background.
Yeah. I think if I had a little bit more time, I would work on these shadows a bit here, but I'm really happy with it. And as a finishing touch, I'm going to take all of this. I'm going to go Command J, Command E as my like little final. I'm going to do a little sharpen just to make it even more interesting. Again, wanting to bring that grit. So I'm going to go to my filter and I'm going to go to a high pass.
High pass filter.
And again, there's so many ways to do this. And I'm so curious about how folks do this, but I'm just going to bring in a little bit more of the texture. And you can do that by just seeing as you go. I think, this would be too far. And you just want to see a little bit of that texture just to bring it out.
And this is all for the end goal of adding a little bit of sharpening to the whole picture?
Yeah, a little bit of texture, a little bit of sharpening. Again, with digital, sometimes it's super sharp and sometimes it's not. So I typically do this at the end of most of my images, especially things that are product focused. So I'm going to hit OK. You're going to see it as is like this. And then in order for it to do the work, I'm going to change it to a soft light layer. And then I think you can tell very, very, very soft, but it's doing it.
Yeah. It's looking good.
And I feel like that's my image.
Nice. Is this the end result?
And I mean, for now, yes.
Yeah.
I think this is like pretty close. But what I'm noticing is I'm loving the shadows. I'm loving the grit. I loved bringing in the birds. I love the feeling of emptiness. And I'm actually particularly obsessed with how what we did with our color treatment brought up some of this paint on the ground in this bottom image, the bottom part of the image. It's all kind of working together with the reds of the sign here, the reds and the yellows of the parking meters. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I think this came out awesome. This is looking super, super cool. Can we do a quick pass of that before and that after that we love to do to see where it started and where we came?
Trick.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
So this is where it started, right? And then this is where it ended. Boom. Look at that. That's awesome.
I'm loving that.
So in the chat, Steve says, fantastic. Would like to see the before version. We just did that. Chris says it looks great. Sydney says it looks awesome. Getting a lot of love from the chat. Cody says beautiful. Yeah, this is good stuff. So quick time check. We still have about 30 minutes left. So did you have any other photos that we might want to edit, or did you want to keep on chugging along with some edits on this one?
Totally. Well, I would love to maybe just quickly go back to our mood board.
Okay.
And just see if anything comes up in terms of ideas, things I might want to add. So something that I noticed was I really love shadows and I love interesting shadows. So I wonder if there's a way to maybe work with our shadows a bit more.
Yeah, let's do it. And let's why don't we, do you want to crowdsource the chat? Are you okay with doing that? Maybe they have some suggestions that we can add or something.
Of course.
Yeah, so we're back to the mood board, folks. Do you guys have any suggestions or anything, maybe something fun, lightweight? We don't want to do anything crazy right now. We only have 30 minutes, but maybe some suggestions and then what we can add to this photo based on the mood board.
In the meantime, I'm going to clean this up by doing a little bit of a copy paste scenario and moving it over to work on that shadow that I wasn't super fond of.
We had some comments about the high pass filter. Chris was saying I use
Mm-hmm.
high pass in portraits in the eyes to add sparkle.
Nice.
And then Richard was saying I like the high pass sharpening as a smart object. I usually have to adjust it when it comes to printing.
Yep. Also true.
And then Jessica's asking you, did Ashley get to attend the 2020 Adobe Max? If so, what were some of your favorite sessions?
I did not.
Oh,
I did not get to attend.
It's all
I
good.
know.
It's crazy times. Yep. Jessica, did you get to attend it? If you did, what were some of your favorite sessions?
I would love to know. I would really love to know. I'm just gonna turn my flow down a bit here.
And what is that we're doing here? Are we cleaning up the shadows a little bit?
Yeah, you know, it felt a little disingenuous to maybe reality, so I'm just gonna pretend like it never happened. I think what was happening was the car was blocking and the content aware was really nice to try and find something else for me, but it didn't exactly do what I was hoping for it to do. So we're okay. Content and aware and I are still cool. So I'm just painting that back in again, before and after. Looking pretty good. We'll have to do some work there. And I might get really crazy eventually and remove all of this. But still chugging along, making sure I have all the tools that I need at my disposal. Yeah, everybody's looking good. The pigeons are looking good. My husband's looking great.
It's looking great.
I'm curious to hear what everyone else does for creative burnout, honestly. I would love to know some tips.
Yeah, let's hear it. What do you all in the chat do for creative burnout? There's so many things to do. And everybody's got their own remedy towards it. So let us all know what you usually do when you've been faced with some creative burnout.
Yes, please.
Mother says, I watch Behance. That is an amazing remedy towards it. Lots of inspiration going on here. Lots of inspiration going on right now.
That's awesome. So I'm working on this parking meter, and I'm just seeing what I can do in order to maybe make it a little bit more realistic here.
Hugh says they pick up their guitar. Megan says, I enjoy mindless video games. Ryan says, play video games. Which video games? That is such a broad answer. Let us know. What type of video games are you playing? Yes.
Yeah, again, are we doing some Sudoku?
Sudoku. Are you a Sudoku fan?
No.
Not at all.
I was playing Words with Friends with my mom, and then she beat me every time, so I deleted it.
Yeah, I'm an English major, so Scrabble and Words with Friends, anytime that gets brought up, people think I'm just going to destroy them, and that is so far from the truth. Like, listen, just because I studied English doesn't mean I know how to play the game amazingly well.
That's true. There are some words that don't seem like words, though. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. It's like those two-letter words that have the Z in it and give you like 40 points if you land on a double word.
Yeah, that's just the game. That's not fair. So that's looking a bit more realistic. That's fun.
Sean says, my remedy is to not do anything about creative burnout. Just let it happen. Creativity will come back naturally. Nice. It's an automation for Jean.
I like that. Just give it time is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
My remedy is usually just to go outdoors, take a nice multi-day backpacking trip, disconnected from phones, from the internet.
Ooh.
And it's just such a reset button for me. I love it. Wouldn't do it any other way.
That sounds I'm like I'm afraid of scarcity, so like food scarcity, I would never. I need to be near some
You
food,
couldn't do
a
it,
coffee shop.
even if you brought out your food, you'd think it wouldn't be enough.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, a lot of scarcity in the wilderness. Definitely gotta make sure you're well prepared.
Oh, this is looking good. I thought I didn't have time, so I was like, oh,
Oh
I
no,
better
yeah, we
hurry
still
up.
got plenty of time. We still got about 25
I know.
minutes.
Whew, I was wrong. I'm feeling good now.
Cool.
I'm like, now I can do what I need to do. This is looking great. Do some more content aware. I'm hoping that maybe we can clean this up a bit with a little content aware. The best.
Our friend is back. Richard's got a cool comment. It says, I upgraded from the photography plan to all apps at the start of the pandemic. I've been busy ever since learning how to use all the apps. No time for burnout when everything is cool and new. Well said, my friend. And props. Props for tackling all the apps. It's a big undertaking.
There's so many to work with too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely crossover with ones that deal with photography, with graphic design, illustration. So yeah, kudos to you. You're going to be a jack of all trades, my friend.
I think that's great. I'm like, which one should I tackle next? Maybe some Premiere. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I love me some video apps. Bruce is chiming in about Adobe Max. He goes, I'd like to chime in on the Adobe Max question. Nick Offerman, the three-legged stool, Nathan Fox, Nora Loom, all inspirations in the fields. Nice. I'm glad you got to attend, Bruce, and get inspired. That's what it's there for. And it was free. Hasn't been free in the past. It's a little bit of a pretty penny, but I'm glad you were able to take advantage of the free conference we did last year.
That's so cool.
All right, so what's going on over here, Ashley? What are we tackling now?
You know, I am just kind of getting in there now and moving things around, making sure it feels real, noticing where maybe I need a little bit more work, like over here, like some rough edges. Just want to make sure everything lines up in the places that they need to line up so that when I zoom out again, it's looking pretty good.
So getting into the finer details of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like a lot of it is going to be your personal preference, which is great. There are no wrong answers. But I do love seeing where I can push it for myself. And you know, as we briefly looked at my portfolio, I think that a lot of my work doesn't look like this. A lot of my work is really clean and really clean compared to this. So I'm really actually pushing myself creatively by saying I want to leave some things in or make it a bit more gritty or whatever it is that I can do to really make it feel like what it was when I was there too.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think now more than ever is time for experimentation. I mean, try different avenues, try different things. If you got one cohesive look across your portfolio, try something else different. You'll be surprised. You might learn something. You might pick up something to bring back to your usual workflow. But I think change and diversity is always good. Definitely when exploring creative. There's all sorts of things to learn and explore.
I mean, some things that I've been doing now, and I think the theme of last year and continuing into this year is, can you do a lot with a little? And so a lot of my work now is just me, no assistants, you know, little access to artificial lighting. What are the things that I can do to change it up for myself? And so just as I'm doing here, where I'm pushing myself in Photoshop, I'm also, when I'm shooting, pushing myself by saying, okay, well, maybe I can use my other eye versus my dominant eye when looking through the viewfinder, or maybe I can, what can I do with one light? How can I maybe take myself out of the equation and try something completely different by moving the light in a way that I wouldn't before, moving my body in a way to get an image that might change it. So I've been doing a lot of stuff like that. And I think it's the same thing with Photoshop, where you might push it a little bit too far and say, okay, that's too far, but I kind of liked where I was going, so let's dial it back.
The whole pushing too far and dialing it back, I think, is a great analogy on just many workflows, right? For example, using Lightroom and messing with the sliders. I mean, if you go all the way to the right, it's extreme, but you dial it back and just see where that happy middle ground is. That could be applied to anything. I mean, even here, just go extreme. See what, you'll know what the extreme is on one end, and you'll know what looks right, and then just dial it back and see where it meets that middle point where it all works.
Yeah, I agree. And Lightroom is a great way to do that in an easy amount of time. I think that with Photoshop, it's a bit more longer type of lead. So don't be afraid to go back. If you're like, you know what, I need to just go back, do it again. I really don't think that there's a problem there. So unless you're crunched for time and it's due tomorrow, I'm not sure, but.
Gaurav is asking, what was your initial thought when you took this shot? And you mentioned this a little bit in the intro, but maybe we can recap for the folks that are just joining us.
Yeah, so this was taken probably around March or April, when we had first entered shelter in place in San Francisco. And I really wasn't feeling creative. In fact, I was feeling scared and confused and wondering if my career as a photographer would come back. What would it look like? But as I slowly started to feel a little bit better and felt like I could integrate being creative into my life again, I went as simple as, well, what is happening outside of my house? And living in San Francisco, it's a bustling city. And this street in particular is usually filled with cars and buses and people all throughout the day and night. So for it to be as empty as this was really a monumental moment for me, and I wanted to document that. And so this creative project was very quick. It was just me and my camera and my lovely husband, who went out on the street and was very safe and watched for buses, which didn't exist at the time. So we were okay. And that was the thought process. And I created a little bit of a mood board ahead of time to make sure that I was in line with the kinds of things that I wanted to shoot. And then once you create a mood board, you think about more of the logistics of what you're shooting and how you're shooting it, and maybe where that might come into play. So that's what we did.
Nice.
I'm just adding that line back in. Just cleaning up the street. Again, zooming in and zooming out. Here's before, taking a look. Not moody, and it's moody.
Chris has a suggestion.
Tell me.
All right. It says, should the angle of the shadow of the yellow parking meter match the other meters?
Yes.
Oh, I see what I mean. It's kind of an oddity. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like
and
it.
You know what? I know. I actually think it feels a little bit dystopian, so yeah. I totally agree with you. And this is the second time that I've edited this image and I didn't do that, but it feels a little off, and I like that. So again, like, it's a personal preference, but and we could totally address that. But for some reason, there's just something about it that's like, wait a second. I don't know.
It's kind of incongruent with the theme of the picture, right? Like the odd one out, the one standing out, that little meter stands out from the rest.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Jessica's asking, question for Paco. Oh, Did you go to Adobe Max? I have in the past, and I actually ran a bunch of streams on the back end. So similar how I'm doing now, running production and then also taking shows live. I ran a bunch of our Adobe Max sessions. I took them live. So Adobe Max just had so many live sessions, so many. But there was obviously some that aired on Behance that were Adobe Live, similar to what we're doing now. And then I ran a bunch of those on the back end while bringing a guest and host live. Fun stuff. Really different. Really push the boundaries on what we can do from home.
I know. I'm sure there's been a learning curve.
Got another question for you.
You too.
You ready?
Yep.
Goes, Ashley, do you photograph images like this with a concept in mind, or do you photograph it because you like the look and the concept gets developed later on in the process?
Ooh. I typically have a concept in mind. And when I'm approaching a shoot, always, I kind of come up with, even if it's just one sentence about it. And so, you know, for this, it was more about what is the feeling of my life in the pandemic right now. And it turned into feelings of living in a city where no one's there. So yeah, there is always a concept in mind. And especially with my portraiture, even up to that moment, you definitely have to at least provide some sort of information with the folks that you're shooting about what the concept is, how you're hoping to achieve a certain look, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I think it's really fun. I think there's always a happy medium of giving yourself time to play and finding new inspiration while you're even shooting. So having a plan, but also giving yourself that time is really, really, really important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Quick time check. We have about maybe 12 minutes left.
Perfect. I feel like I could really be done then, which is great.
Sweet.
Yeah. I'm curious if people took any images documenting their life during this crazy last year and what they did.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. How have you used this pandemic to stay creative, or did you use it as inspiration to do something a little different, similar to what Ashley did?
Yeah. Again, not my normal work at all. So definitely really fun to see. And so, you know what I'm going to do? Just kind of do some burning. So I'm going to create a new layer called burn. I'm going to move all these into my removal. Yeah, perfect. And again, just drawing the eye. And this is a super old school thing. I think what's great about it is that you can do it in multiple of ways, but I'm going to affect the midtones and I'm going to keep my exposure down just in case. But I'm just going to burn. Maybe turn it on to the shadows just a little bit more. There we go. I just want to see like a hint of the buildings, and I'm seeing that, but I'm just with a light touch. I'm going to burn in this tree the tree shadow a bit more. Just to make it extra gritty. And then where I want you to draw your eye. Yeah. It's all about that focus, as we've been talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And something that I suggest is just look at, you know, what you currently see with your eye and maybe just bolster that a bit versus trying to add light from another place. That's definitely where I try to keep it as natural as possible. Just really go with what you already saw. And that'll be the path of least resistance, at least. Just burning it in. Nothing crazy.
What camera did you shoot this with, Ashley?
This is on the 5D Mark IV.
Nice. Canon.
Yeah. Great camera.
Oh yeah, I'm still rocking a Mark III. That is my go-to camera.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
And
I've
you
been
shoot a bunch of landscapes?
it's landscape. Yeah, so it's not necessarily the most weight-friendly camera when you're backpacking, and every ounce counts. That thing's a tank, but it's built like a
Yeah.
tank, so it has literally weathered anything that I've thrown at it. Whether it's rain, snow, freezing temperatures, dew. So it's a handy cam.
That's so great. Yeah, I have a number of cameras, I'm sure you could imagine. I shoot some of my like more street travel photography on a Ricoh, which is really small but so
Ricoh.
powerful.
Is that the
Yeah.
brand?
Mm-hmm.
Haven't heard of it.
Ricoh.
Ricoh.
Ricoh. So that's always fun.
Sweet.
And yeah, but this was on my normal big camera.
And what
Always
lens
fun.
were you shooting with?
You know, I think this was the 24 to 70, and I'm gonna say that because I was probably shooting at 24, since this is kind of bowed up here. Again, it was an aesthetic choice to really like add that more dystopian feel, and also to get more of the scene in. But there's lots of ways that you could have approached this image yourself, and just gonna keep burning a little bit, but I'm just gonna bring out that like tar a little bit more just by like lightly burning and then making that shadow super apparent. But there's some wonderful cameras and lenses that are more specific for landscapes that maybe take away that sort of fisheye type of look if you want it to feel a bit more graphic.
Definitely.
And then I'm just gonna burn this side a little bit so that it just brings your eye in a bit more. It's like contouring. Again, just toggling on and off.
Nice. Really making a difference.
Yeah, and it's really light. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I think we keep talking about this, but I could take it further and see if that went too far, or leave it as is. So I'm just gonna do a little bit more here. And then I'm gonna zoom out, zoom in, see how I'm feeling about it.
It's looking good.
It's looking really good. Yeah. I'm seeing everything I want to see. I'm just doing another test of my eye by getting in there, seeing what I might want to remove.
We have a workflow question. This one also may just come down to preference, but Fairy's asking, why don't you darken it with adjustment layers instead of using burn tool and then use a mask on that adjustment to burn or darken your photo?
Totally. I think that's going to be the easiest way, is to add that layer and mask it. But for me, in this particular moment, this is more about a feeling for me. So, and I do come from a time where I used to burn my images in a darkroom. So again, like, I think it's down to personal preference. But the more efficient way would actually be to create that layer. And I think that's just an interesting little fine line where, you know, some artists decide to achieve an image in a certain way, and others go the opposite way. So for me, I'm actually kind of unlearning a little bit at this time and trying to make things have more of a feeling for myself. So I would normally do that because it's definitely more seamless, an easier way to go. So totally encourage that.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it really all comes down to personal preference. I mean, different strokes for different folks. No right or wrong way to do it. It's just whatever works for you. And I think, like, as you said, Ashley, past experience can definitely influence current experience. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just what works.
I'm just going to show for like a, you know, another burn layer actually would be we would make a curves and I would darken it a bunch. And then I would turn on that layer mask by inverting it. And with a white brush, I'd paint in the parts that I want it to be dark. So I'm approaching it in the same way. But just a little bit different. So again, like you can see I'm getting really heavy handed here just so you see what it does.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many ways to do it. And for me, it was just like, I wanted to be a little bit more artistic in my brushing. And I think for this, you can see it just like adding too much for me. Like there's a difference between the dark and the light. So I'm not going to do it. But again, it's completely up to you.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. But I'm loving it. I'm feeling really good about it now that I had a little bit more time, which is great. And yeah.
So we have about 3 minutes left. In these last couple minutes, why don't we recap real quick what we did, where it started, just talk a little bit about each layer we turn on. We have about 2 minutes. And then we just show that before and after, and then say goodbye to all our wonderful friends that joined us for this stream.
Great. So again, this was an image that I really wanted to work on. And the way that I went about it was I cleaned up a bit, just all of the little stuff that's really easy, gets you into the flow, you know, gets you starting to think a little bit more strategically about the image. And then I added some of my comp things, these birds, which are you can totally add after, but for me, I kind of wanted to see the progression of the image versus adding it later, just in case I might have wanted to remove something there. And then I added a treatment, again, just to see like, where can this go? And then I went into removing a bunch of things like cars and people and trash that maybe was just a bit distracting. And then at the end, I just burned in a little bit. I just really wanted to draw the eye. And then as the final step, which I deleted before, but we're going to just do a little bit of sharpening, which is that high pass filter, where I go to filter, high pass, and then I find that sweet spot again, like finding what's too much, finding what's not enough. And I really just want to see some of the outlines coming to life here. So in order for this to do the work, I turn it to a soft overlay, a soft light blending mode, and toggling on and off to see what we did.
There it is. Awesome. Well, this came out so awesome, Ashley. Thank you so much for showing us your process, talking through it, just being all around an awesome person to chat to about photo editing the past 2 hours.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah. We're not playing that intro again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been an awesome 2 hours. Thank you for all the questions, for sticking around with us, and just making this an awesome stream. Stick around. Don't go anywhere because we still have an action-packed day. Check out what's coming up after us. It's the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge, along with more good stuff. So don't go anywhere. Have us on in the background. Plenty more to see and do today. And that is it for us. We'll be here again tomorrow at the same time, so stick around for part 2. Ashley, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, we're going to say goodbye. Adios, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.